There are many battles across shonen anime, but Rengoku vs Akaza jumped out at me as a particularly prime example of the genre firing on all cylinders. It's obvious that the minds and artists behind Demon Slayer knew precisely what they were doing, which begs the question, what is it that they know? What goes into creating an exquisite anime battle such as this? To answer, we'll take a look at the fantastic use of choreography, animation, camera work, body language, pacing, power balancing, determination, tension, emotional effect, and more. Uncover how we came to respect and feel deeply for a character that we just met through a fight that ignites the spirit. But first, if you like this sort of video and want to see more, please like and subscribe to the channel, this is most appreciated. Now back to it. This fight is immersive, it's alive. Demon Slayer has a knack for applying just the right amount of point of view perspective in its battles. As Akaza rushes towards Tanjiro at the start of the fight, it's given an increased perception of velocity and turbulence, providing a deeper sense of chaotic pacing to the encounter, as well as a more personal acquaintance with the threat facing our heroes, seeing through the eyes of the hunter. This would be used in inverse later, for the perspective of the prey, as we see Akaza quickly leap in front of us, but this isn't the only special camera work at play. Through a rotating perspective and panning, they're able to cultivate a strong feeling of area and dimensionality, as well as maintaining a focus on the right stuff like the characters' faces, martial art styles, and perfectly balancing the focus time of each fighter, while offering fluid and rapid shifting between the initiatives of each side. They also apply a lot of framing symmetry between the two fighters, helping to silently depict them as equal opposites, without needing to cut between shots. It's a seamlessly flowing, eloquent exchange. Yet another method the creators have for intensifying the fight through the camera is by swinging it along the movement of a punch, dodge, or sprint. The momentum and impact of that move is accentuated. The vast majority of popular anime have a much more static viewing experience, relying on rapid camera cuts for its depiction, and miss out on that feeling of battlefield presence, without relying on wide shots that take away from the precise detail of the fight taking place. But while the viewing eye might be sharp, we also need something marvelous to view through those eyes, and that's where stuff like animation and art come into play. It's buttery smooth throughout the entire fight. I'm talking about subtle facial movements, sword swings, punches, visual effects, backgrounds, character scaling, all of this at once. It's a delight to witness, and I think that's one of the most universally held positive perspectives on Demon Slayer. Going a bit deeper into this idea of buttery smooth animation, what it is essentially is per substantial movement of any character or effect. There are many minute movements across each frame that get us from point A to point B, never skipping or jumping from place to place, creating that feeling of realism. The world doesn't have frame jumps after all, and they harness this realism in everything from the way Rengoku and Akaza move their heads when talking to one another, their bodies as they commit to punches and sword attacks, to accompany the smooth camera work. As it zooms in, the characters and objects are drawn at gradually increased scale that matches up perfectly. The movement for flames of all variety and air blasts are given the same sort of treatment, and important to note, these are highly detailed effects with sharp lining and multi-tone coloring. The flames aren't just orange, they have light areas, dark and middle tones, giving it a very luminous and authentic aesthetic, making it all the more demanding to manipulate with such finesse. But where things get totally ridiculous is where all of these things meet, and by applying more and more of these smooth living elements together, we can match the buildup of the fight, and pour on as many of these strategies at once to produce an awe-inspiring and wondrous scene. And this is precisely what happens at the climax of Rengoku vs Akaza. We have those detailed facial animations depicting Rengoku's intensity, Akaza's sharp transition to fear, those smooth object motions of Rengoku's sword as it switches angles, gliding through the air and through Akaza's arm, creating an eruption of searing blood, seen through that point of view perspective we talked about, all the while engulfed in Rengoku's torrent of flames, flowing past them like an ocean current, layering all of these wonderful animations at once. Rengoku's also drawn with thicker, dark outlines as he reaches the limit of his ability, giving him an even more serious look, in his most determined state yet. It's one thing to have multiple skills, but a whole other to combine them all into one masterpiece. This is what we're witnessing when we watch Rengoku vs Akaza. So now we have the eyes to see properly, and the precision to move fluidly. Then the question is, how did the characters take advantage of those tools to create a great fight? The combat itself has a lot of variation. Akaza's flurries of punches colliding with the blade edge of Rengoku's sword, narrow, slow evasions from both fighters keeping the tension high, tight pivoting around one another as they shift gears between offense and defense, a building rate of attacks from slower single attacks with greater emphasis to chaotic explosions of dozens, which is part of the great pacing here. Things are slow when it comes to the meaningful strikes, a punch sinking into Rengoku's stomach, a slight grazing on his forehead indicating his diminishing stamina, and throughout the fight there's alternation within brief exchanges where we'll get a quick slowdown to build that tension for the coming attack, letting the audience take it all in, and then shifting to a rapid motion and follow through to put emphasis on the velocity of the characters when dealing blows, giving this whipping effect to the pace of battle. The slight redirection of attacks, taking severe severe damage to avoid fatal injury, blade twisting for maximum damage, deep violent shredding of limbs. Elemental attacks serve as an embodied figure for Rengoku's fighting spirit, starting as a tiger and then evolving into a dragon. The fire in his heart is externalized, shown growing outward and coursing through his veins as he builds up power, setting his heart ablaze. An iconic phrase, offering some depth to his position as the Flame Hashira, what that name stands for. Shifting toward the smaller scale, he would eventually tire out, drawing the fight to a standstill, a battle of inches, clawing for a deeper cut into Akaza's neck, while using his punctured stomach muscles to pin Akaza's arm like a beast, not allowing him to escape, bringing the viewer to the edge of their seats as the sun begins to shine and fall upon the demon. Tanjiro and Inosuke race to finish him off, multiple points of tension building against the enemy, all to be undone in one last desperate effort from Akaza, pulling with a force that tears his limbs off. The hunter becomes the hunted of a higher power, and that look of fear and desperation takes over, which is a win in itself despite him getting away. All throughout the fight there's been an unfair gap in the amount of effort made versus the effect had. Akaza, for his unfair advantages, is able to coast through the battle with an excited, carefree, arrogant demeanor. Rengoku fights very serious and tense because he knows what's at stake, what he has to lose, while Akaza, like most demons, is just fighting for themselves, with a belief that they're unstoppable. This isn't because of some earned talent or even because he's a prodigy, simply because he's a demon. He loses an arm or side of his body, but can just grow it back. He gets to look down on the hard-working, superior skilled Rengoku, which is naturally upsetting. As we watch Rengoku slowly die down to fatigue and minor injuries building up on his body, a slight shaking of the sword grip, some heavy breathing, Akaza's attacks becoming incrementally more effective, with nothing remaining to show for his effort, as every success was just washed away because he was fighting a demon. But at least at the end we can see that mortal fear cut into Akaza, as Rengoku's blade makes its way through his neck. He may not have managed to end him, but he turned him into the prey. He made a statement for humans as a species, enforcing his pride in the human qualities that from his enemy's perspective are weakness, but which Rengoku redefines as another sort of strength, and their mortal lives as a precious and beautiful thing for its fleeting nature, something he goes on to prove in the most sincere way as he dies for his cause, leaving us content with a smile on his illuminated face, promising Tanjiro that things are alright, a cause that we learn was rooted all the way into his beginnings. He was serving the will that his mother left behind the whole time. It's how his heart came to be so pure. It was that light that fueled his fire so intensely. Just the thought of these memories inspired a heated battle cry from Rengoku, his veins bulging and gritting his teeth, bleeding at the end of his rope, that innocent defining purpose being used to draw out every ounce of determination from him. It's what powers him unshakably against the allure of darkness that is central to the idea of this battle, his rejection of what could save him, what could bring him victory, a life that would allow him to grow strong for hundreds of years on, which would raise him to what Akaza considers the realm of the Most High. Akaza wants badly for him to take hold of that, giving this fight an unusual balance to its conflict. Rengoku's life is slowly snuffed out for his unwillingness to embrace this potential. Imagine being slowly torn to shreds with the perpetrator begging you to choose life, and with absolute resolve telling them no, all for humanity, for his mother, and it's in that sense that he won, holding firm to his principles, never for a moment faulting to temptation. It's always a treat to see the alternative victories that a shonen can leave us with in compensation for the loss of the fighting. It's a bittersweet resolution that commands respect from the audience, but also fuels resentment of the enemy, and eagerness to see him brought to justice. After all, it feels like we've been cheated, a feeling that's echoed greatly by Tanjiro as he breaks down emotionally, entrenching him in hatred toward the cowardice displayed by such a fighter. This would stand as a future challenge for people to overcome in the name of Rengoku, and a savory taste of revenge for the audience when he would eventually fall. Another marker of a solid fight, the prospect for future battles, the lingering emotions that would infect the journey of other central characters. He shows what it means to be a Hashira, something that breathes fire into the spirit of Tanjiro. In this profound rippling effect, Tanjiro would gladly be burdened with carrying on the torch, honoring the hero's legacy, taking away a piece of that fighting spirit, as Rengoku tells him to set his heart ablaze, an idea for emulation. To be like him is the mission. It forms a larger-than-life presence for this character. He wasn't with us long, but for that short time it was beautiful. The brightest flames burn out the quickest, the exemplification of his philosophy on the precious value of human life, taking hold of every moment and seizing it. Rengoku did just this, and at this point I'd say it's rather clear why this fight was so excellent. With that said, I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe for more videos like these, continuing to grow every day as a channel and a person. This was your boy Woski discussing Demon Slayer, and I'll catch you later. Peace.